Here with me in the studio is the former Conservative Cabinet Minister, prominent Eurosceptic, Owen Paterson. Good evening. You've been listening to the whole caboodle of options and things. Which is your favourite option, by the way?
My favourite option is the British option. We are the fifth largest economy in the world. We have a huge deficit with our European neighbours, knocking up to 70 billion a year. 5 million Europeans depend on sales tier. They will want to do a deal with us. And I think what was really useful about all your clips, which shows there are different solutions for different countries. But I thought what was really interesting, none of them missed, or they all missed actually, the key movement, which is towards global regulation and global government. What you missed out is that we want to get our seat back on those global bodies.
Can the Prime Minister actually set out 5 questions which he thought were quite important today, and I wonder if we can just go through some of them very quickly,
yeah, sure,
because they are useful. Would the UK still be obliged to follow EU rules on free movement of people? In your view, if we're out, would free movement apply?
Well, that depends what our final end solution is.
I know, but I'm asking you what your preferred solution would be. You're going to have to explain this.
Well, for starters, people, don't forget, the Treaty of Rome was free movement of labour, and the Treaty of Lisbon moves to free movement of people. But what I would like to see is our laws made in our own parliament, so we get back control of our immigration policy.
Right. So not free movement. Not like
that's
Norway,
to be negotiated. That's to be negotiated.
Would the UK still be forced to pay an EU subscription fee like Switzerland and a bit more in Norway?
Well, again, it depends what the end solution is. And I don't know where these figures have come from. All the figures I've seen, Norway pays about half.
Right. Well, it was the Norwegian Europe minister who told us it's about the same. I mean, I don't know.
The figures I've seen shows about half.
Right. But you would expect the UK to or not?
Well, it all depends what the end solution is. I want to get back to the global level. I want Britain to take a full seat on the WTO. You had an interesting clip with Allegra of some fish. Norway, which was missed out by their minister, chairs the global body committee. This is very important. The Global Committee on Fish. They export €3 billion of fish.
This is not an answer to the Prime Minister's question, which was, would the UK be paying an EU subscription fee?
It is.
You're going to have to explain. I'm sorry, I don't want to hear about fish. I want to hear about the UK subscription under the scenario that you are advocating. Yes or no? It's quite simple.
Evan, you might not want to hear about fish, but fishermen do. And we want to get our seat back.
When I ask about fish, we'll talk about fish. We've talked to you about fish before, and Norway. I can actually remember sitting over there doing it. Now,
and you interrupted me last time, like you're interrupting now.
But now, I won't interrupt if you'll answer the question about the EU subscription. Will we pay one or not on your anticipated
I want to move to a global system where we have full representation as a full nation on global bodies. At the moment, we are represented by a 28th of a commissioner, which is highly unsatisfactory as we move to global regulation. The EU is retreating as a law creator. It's the global bodies that are moving. So you've got to think out of your EU box.
Right. Is that an answer to the question, would the UK still be paying subscriptions to the EU?
It depends.
Have you answered the question?
No.
Okay, right. Well, let's move on. The public will read what they want.
Evan, you are presuming we will be in an EU. The EU is going to leave us.
I'm asking you to explain a scenario, and you're failing to tell me whether we would be paying a subscription. I was thinking your answer is no, but I don't...
Because you are assuming we will be in something called the EU. The EU is leaving us. They're going to form...
It won't be like Norway, it won't be like Switzerland, we won't pay a subscription.
No, we will be outside getting our seat back at the global level. That's the key thing.
Would we be in a trade deal with the EU, and would we be in the trade deals that the EU's negotiated with other nations? Yes, there's another...
Well, yes, I mean, I've said that already. We have this huge trade deficit with them. We want to trade with them. We will inevitably come up with a satisfactory trade deal. It's in everybody's interest.
Now, the most pertinent question, and one that's really quite difficult, is what if they set terms which you don't like for us to have access to their market? Because the Prime Minister says 31 other governments and parliaments, will they all agree to the UK's new relationship? Because the official procedure is they go into a locked room, they decide the treaty that will determine our relationship with them, and they hand it to us, and we take it or leave it.
But we're getting outvoted now. We've been beaten in the Council 55 times in the last few years. We have a rotten deal at the moment where you are constantly being outvoted. I was outvoted myself when I was the DEFRA Secretary. So
you'll just take the deal they offer us? What do they say, as they may?
I'm saying we have a thoroughly unsatisfactory deal now, which costs us a fortune, where we have laws and regulations imposed upon us, where we do not have our full seat on the global bodies, which I'm repeating
I know.
which I'm very keen on. So we will get our full role back on that. And that changes the relationship completely.
Right. Now, what if they come back and say to us, we would love you to have access to our single market. You can have full access. We don't want it to be a race to the bottom on labour standards. So obviously, to have full access to the single market, you will have to obey this, that and the other part of our social chapter as part of the condition. Do we say yes or no to that?
No, because I'm looking to a global system where we are making rules at a global level.
Sorry, you've said...
And it is inconceivable we will not come to a satisfactory trade deal when we have a $70 billion deficit with them, when 5 million of their citizens depend on us for trade. We will come to a deal with them.
What proportion of their GDP is exported to us?
Well, it depends on the different countries. I mean, some of Germany is much higher.
Overall?
No, it's it varies
about
considerably.
3%. It's about 3%.
It varies
what
dramatically
proportion of our
between the different
GDP
countries.
is exported to them?
Well, the key fact of the last few months is each of the last 12 months, our sales outside the EU to the rest of the world have increased faster than the EU sales. But this is still important, that we have a satisfactory trade deal with them, but we get our rollback on the world bodies and re-galvanise the Anglosphere with the States and Canada and working with the Commonwealth, because it's the breakdown in the movement to world free trade which is causing so many problems around the world.
Have you answered the question, because I'm not sure you have, about how we will establish a trade relationship with them that gives us access to their market without them dictating some of those terms? There are 31 of them, or 26 of them, plus the 5 EEA members. So there's them and there's us.
And they have a huge selfish and strategic interest in coming to a satisfactory deal with us.
Now, you have said, or people on your side of the argument have said, we can't possibly think about a treaty change option under David Cameron and a renegotiation without it being signed in blood and ratified before we have to vote on it. Are you going to ask us, when we come to the referendum, to vote on an out prospectus as vague as the one you've been describing tonight?
No, I'm not being vague at all. I have a very clear view that we want a new relationship as they move away from us and effectively form their new country.
You don't think
No, hang on. No, hang on. I want a relationship based on trade and cooperation, which is what we voted to join back in 1975. Allied to that, I want to make our own laws in our own parliament, and I want to have our own full-time representative on the global bodies. And this is incredibly important. Get our full rollback on the global bodies, and then we will really influence regulation, which then cascades down through the EU.
I'm hearing what you want, but I'm not clear whether, if they say they don't want the relationship you're describing, what you can actually do about it. And I think what you're saying is we should trust that in the end it will be all right. They won't play hardball. But you've seen divorces which have ended with irrationally hardball playing characters doing stuff that may not be in the interest of both parties.
They have a huge interest.
Right. Have you seen a divorce case where somebody's acted against their own interests in order to hurt the other one?
Well, it's a different sort of divorce when you have a massive deficit going one way and you have 5 million people dependent on jobs, and something like the car industry, which is completely integrated across borders. There are huge vested interests in Europe that will want trade and cooperation to carry on. And we can do that, allowing them to move into a political relationship which we can never follow. We're never going to be in the euro, we're never going to be in Schengen. They will effectively form their new country, as they've announced in various reports. And that gives us this opportunity, because we will have the whip hand, because in order to get that through, they will have to have a treaty change, and we have a whip hand to ensure that we have a totally new relationship with our neighbours based on trade, cooperation, and making our own laws in our own parliament.
Owen Paterson, thanks very much indeed.